Hello everyone, this is Jennifer Beamer, owner-operator of X-Ray Dyed Art by Science, and I am holding a bat, which means I'm actually going to be doing some core spinning for you guys today. This is a bat that I made a few weeks ago, and the reason why I made it was because I just got some pulled sari silk from Darn Good Yarn, and I wanted to sort of see how it would look on a bat as sort of like the pops of color and the texture. And I actually posted this picture on her fan page and got a ton of comments about it. So I thought I would actually use this particular bat for the core spinning video I'm going to make right now. So there's lots of colors in here too. There's like yellow, well actually that's green fire star. There's blue, red, purple, green, sort of like salmon pink color. There's a little bit of white. This is the bamboo. And then like these little pops of color are the pulled sari silk. So yeah. Anyway, so when you get a bat, you unfold it and you tear off a piece of it. For core spinning, the best fiber preparation actually is carding or like hand fluffing out the fiber, because you want there to be a lot of air, you want there to be a lot of loft. This isn't supposed to be a very dense feeling yarn. So you'll want to use bats for this. Now that said, you don't have to use exclusively only bats. You can do the same thing with hand-dyed top if you want. You just have to make sure that you draft out the fibers enough to incorporate more air. So that's kind of what I did here. Is I drafted the fibers out a little bit to give it some extra loft and to, you know, thin out a little bit because I don't want a super fat bulky yarn. So let's talk about the core. So it doesn't really matter too much what you use. I'm a fan of using acrylic because it's really, really cheap and it doesn't break very easily. Don't use cotton or plant-based fibers because you know, you have to worry about like the staple length. Cotton has a very short staple length, and then like bamboo, for example, is a little bit too slippery for the wool to catch onto. So in a general sense, I just kind of stay away from those fibers. Also, don't use silk because you'll have the same issue. And silk is gorgeous. You don't want to cover it up by wool. So like I said, I use acrylic. Now, in terms of color, you don't really have to care so much unless you're being very specific. Every once in a while, whenever I make a corespun yarn, you might see a teeny little bit of the core yarn, and if that bothers you, what you could do is you could pick a color that's very similar to the fiber you're using. So, you know, I'm using a dark color for the fiber, so I'm going to use a dark color for the core yarn, but then again, it's like the only core yarn I have. I bought a ton of this green stuff when I was first knitting and before I was really introduced into nice fibers. So I have a lot of it. I'm actually running out, so I need to have someone buy me a bunch. Anyway, so when you do core spinning, what you'll want to do is you'll tie your leader, or tie the core onto your leader somehow, which I've just done with an overhand loop or an overhand knot. And then you want to just to feed on about 12 or so inches of your leader of your core yarn. Oh my goodness. You want to feed on about 12 inches of your core yarn so that you have something to tie your skein off with when you're done. Okay? Now, you're going to hold your core yarn straight out from the orifice and with some tension. You want to have the tension on your wheel cranked up a little bit so that the yarn goes onto the bobbin relatively quickly, because if it doesn't, it's going to get really, really, really twisted, and then the yarn is going to feel like rope or cording, and it won't feel very soft at all. And it will also cause the fiber, as it's going on your yarn, or your core yarn, it's going to go on really tightly, and it's going to take out any air that you've tried to add into the yarn. So increase the tension a little bit, make sure you have tension on your core yarn, and you're going to hold your core yarn directly out from the orifice. The fiber is going to be in your other hand, and you're going to feed it on at a 90-degree angle. So if I have my core yarn here, I'm going to hold my fiber supply directly 90 degrees or so. Once I actually get started, you'll see I kind of like do this back and forth motion, and I'll explain what that is when I get started. So when you get started, I just kind of, I draft out the fibers a little bit, kind of as if I were actually spinning normally, and I'm going to like just stick it, you know, just gonna like put it right here on the core yarn, and then I'm gonna start spinning. And it will start to grab the yarn, or it's going to start to grab the fiber. It's okay if this part here, you can still see the core yarn, because I mean, it's essentially a waste. Once you make your project, you're going to start with this part in the core part. Alright, so I'm going to do this back and forth motion, and I'm going to be very light with how I put the fiber on. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the yarn like or the fiber like this, and I'm just kind of going back and forth like this with the fiber to make sure that it goes on with enough air to give it a sort of poofy look to it. The reason why I stopped just now is because I wanted the blue side to be close to the core, and all the fun stuff that I put on the batt to be on the outside. So what I just did is I twisted the yarn, or I twisted the fiber around. So as you can see, gotta twist this around. As you can see, I'm being very loose with the fiber, and I'm just kind of letting it go on and do its own thing as I'm doing it. And you can see how quickly the yarn is being taken up onto my bobbin here. If you have a lot of fun stuff in your batt, you might have to hand crank sometimes, because the fiber will get caught on the hooks here, so you have to be careful. If you have one of those slider things where you just thread the yarn through kind of like a needle, then you don't have to worry about this. But if you're like me, I have to worry about it a little bit. So anyway, so I'm just going back and forth like this, and what this is doing is it's making sure that the fiber is gripping the core yarn. If it isn't, then what you can do is slow down ever so slightly, and the yarn will, gosh, I'm trying to do too much at once here. It got stuck on one of the hooks. I'm going to have to hand wind it for a little bit. If it's not really going on the core yarn like you want, you can go a little slower. You don't really have to go fast. Whoops, let's go in the right direction. Alright. So, you can do this relatively slowly. It's okay. When you get towards the end, what you'll want to do is add in more fiber. So what I do is I take the core yarn, because what will happen is it will unwind. I take the core yarn and I just wrap it around something so that I have my hands free. And I'll just rip off another piece. So this is what I did to get the first piece. I unfolded my batt like this, and then I just see the pretty side. I have most of the batt gathered in my right hand, and then I just find a hole in the fiber. I don't know why I keep calling it fiber. I don't know why I keep calling it yarn. It's fiber. Oh gosh. Anyway, so I just kind of inchworm my way down here, holding with my right hand and pulling away with my left. And this is so that I can get a strip off the batt, like this. And it doesn't really matter too much how much you draft here. If you want it to be a really fat, chubby looking yarn, then you don't do a lot of this. If you want it to be a little bit smoother looking, then you'll want to draft a little bit more so that it's more consistent as you add on the fiber to the core. But this is just kind of, you know, a rough amount. So to add, I'll undo my core from the maiden, and then I'm just going to overlap this a little bit with the yarn, or the I called it yarn again, but overlap it with the fiber again, and then I'm going to just keep going like this. And I feel that it's actually not taking on the fiber, which means it must be stuck on a hook. Yep, it's stuck on a hook. Ah! Got a really fat piece just then, so that's probably why. These hooks on the Kromsky Minstrel are a little bit different than the cup hooks on my babe wheel. So they are kind of like this shape instead of this shape. Let's see, like this. They look more like this. My babe wheel has cup hooks that look like this. So it's a little bit, I guess, more difficult to get the yarn, this fat yarn, through those smaller cavity areas. So anyway, so it's actually going on much faster now. But I kind of pull it back a little bit like this, and that's just, like I said, to make sure that it sticks to the core yarn, because if it doesn't, then after you've spun all this yarn and you like run your hand over like this, or like when you're knitting, you're going to be like wrapping it around and stuff, the fiber is going to move a lot, and you don't want that to happen. The other thing is it's going to be a little bit overspun, and that's totally fine. It's how it's supposed to be, because if it's not going to curl up on itself, then you haven't added enough twist to make sure that the fiber will stay put. As long as there's enough twist so that the fiber stays on is great. Well, let me reword that. So you want there to be enough twist so that the fiber stays on, but not so much that when you release the tension, you see how like droopy this looks? This is actually kind of what you want. You want it to be a little bit droopy, because if there's too much twist, like I said, it's going to feel like a hard cording wire thing, and you don't want that. That's actually what I did with my first few corespun yarns, and I absolutely hated it. Oh, I was embarrassed. I'm like, I can actually do this. So anyway, I know there's other core spinning videos out there on the internet, but I just wanted to add in my 2 cents because I do mine a little bit differently. Like I said, as I'm actually spinning, I kind of do this back and forth motion, which I don't ever see anyone else do. And my thought process is it's taking a little bit of the air out where the bottom layer of fiber will first connect to the core yarn, so that I know that it stays put. The rest of it is very light and airy. Like, I don't ever pull. If I pulled too hard, of course the fibers would draft apart, and that'd be really obvious. So yeah, basically it's just, I guess it's kind of like an insurance for me that when I'm finished doing my corespun yarn, the fibers aren't going to move around a lot on the core yarn, and it's still going to look fluffy and beautiful, and it's not going to have a bunch of extra twist. Anyway, so when I'm done with this, I'm actually going to post I'm going to post pictures of this yarn on my Facebook page, and maybe someone can talk me into selling it. I don't know, I really like this yarn. If you liked watching this video, please subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, fan me on Facebook. Gosh, my tongue is doing its own thing today. Anyway, so, thanks for watching. Bye!